G'day Myofascial followers and welcome to the August newsletter 2015. Topics today: back from holidaying, 5th of 12 small things to do for healthier living, myofascial lines, arm lines, and the soup of the month. So let's get right back into it. I'm not quite back yet from holidaying, but I will be. Sessions available are again from Saturday the 15th of August. Please email me with any inquiries, as I will not respond to any text message or voicemail, as my phone won't be working in Europe. And also, if you'd like, you can follow along on my holiday or in general, either through my business page on Facebook or Instagram as well. The links to that are found in the written version of this newsletter. Okay, number 2, 4th of 12 small things to do for healthier living. Today we're going to talk about eating more vegetables. Yay! First of all, finally this year we have an update on the healthy eating pyramid, the food pyramid, Australian food guidelines. I've got 2 pictures here showing how they compare. The pictures aren't the greatest. So here we've got the 2 pyramids comparing 2004 and 2015, and as you can see, the base completely changed. Instead of sharing the base between veg and fruit with carbs and rice and bread and all that, it's now completely just fruit and veg based. And then you've got your carbs and pasta and that above in a smaller amount. Following that, therefore, as well, smaller is all your dairy, your meats and all that. And on top, instead of having, I think, in the 2004 one, I think that's sweets and stuff. And that's actually oils as well. So they're still keeping the oils in the small top part. But yeah, so main thing is you've got a really, really big base of the pyramid just being fruits and veg. So even though officials have finally got it that the main staples in our diet should be fresh fruit and vegetables. And as I said before, if you have a close look, even the grain category in the new pyramid looks a lot more whole grain, dark grains. Yeah, like, you know, not just nuts and seeds, not just your white, gummy, yucky stuff. But let's stick with the vegetables for today. Let's not talk about bread. So the general rule of thumb I like to go by, and that's not just food but anything really, is an 80-20 rule. So this means in terms of your food, that out of the 100% you take in throughout the whole day in food, 80% should be alkaline forming. I have included a link, again in the written version, where you can find an acid-alkaline chart, some foods explaining or showing you which foods are alkaline forming, which are acidic forming. I'm not going to go into this too deep now, but I may actually do an acid-alkaline block at some later time. So if you feed your body 80% alkalizing foods, that is a really, really good way to make good food choice, because most of your alkalining foods are fruits, vegetables. That's just what it comes down to. For the other 20%, you can go with the more acidic foods and you know, still doing your body good with it. So eating like this is more really a lifestyle than a diet, because you're not counting calories, or it's not that you're not allowed to eat certain foods. You're allowed to pretty much eat anything. You're just making choices what you're eating more and what you're eating less of. So it's a simpler way of healthy eating. The important thing is not to get caught worrying about eating lots of different stuff when you first start changing things. Don't get caught up in, oh my god, I gotta include the whole rainbow of colors and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Get started, and if bloody spinach is the only green you're taking in for the first couple of months, then that's still better than nothing. So just go with it, ease into it, and don't stress out about it. Surely it's better to have variety, but you know, that'll come with time. So my tips on increasing your intake on vegetables: first one is to have a set day or once per week when you do your fresh food shopping. That can be you yourself going out, or you're getting them delivered. But this will guarantee you fresh produce every week. Since I, for example, started going to the local farmers markets every Sunday, I've been now doing that for about 2 years. I hardly buy anything from the big shops anymore. You can just see the difference in the produce. It looks so much more fresh and what's the word I'm looking for? Full of life. When you buy it from the markets, it's just amazing. So have 1 day a week where you get fresh produce into the house. Either way. Number 2, have backups. Frozen vegetables can be just as nutritious as fresh. They're a good alternative. Steam them, use minimal water as it leaches the vitamins. But yeah, have frozen vegetables in the freezer at all time. Cut them up. They're the perfect snack food with a nice dip. You won't need chips to enjoy your favorite movie. Another one, instead of having the 80-20 rule, is the half plate rule. Not instead, but actually on top of that. So the half plate rule, or half to 3/4 of your plate, should be filled with vegetables, and then the rest of the plate is what you're having with your vegetables. When you're eating out in restaurants, order them on the side. Have some extra salad, some extra vegetables on the side when you eat out. You can also go a bit more modern with all this and replace your carbs with vegetables. So you could use big salad leaves instead of bread for sandwiches, rice paper or nori sheets for your wraps. There's pizza bases made out of cauliflower. I myself haven't tried that yet, but if you just hop online, Google pizza base cauliflower, you're going to get some great recipes. You can dress up your vegetables. This is tip number 7. They don't have to be boring, so you can bake them in olive oil, you serve them with a bit light cheese or sauce or some butter and herbs, stir fry them with oyster hoisin sauce. There's lots of varieties. Adding a bit of sauce to them just to give them a bit more flavor. Tip number 8, having soup or salad starting a meal with can also help, first of all, to obviously increase the intake of vegetables, but also to decrease the intake of other stuff you're eating, and also help reducing the risk of overeating. And last but not least, you can juice it or make a smoothie. So a juice made primarily from vegetables is a nutritious addition to the day, and is just an easy, quick way. It's what I mostly do in summer. I live off juices and smoothies, and yeah, a hearty soup in winter instead. That's again more what I do. You can check through my previous newsletters for recipes on all kinds of juices and soups as well. And that's pretty much it for this one. And yes, next month we'll be already halfway through our 12 healthy things to improve for a better life. Number 3, myofascial lines, my favorite topic. Talking about the arm lines today. There's 4 of them, so check them out on this picture here. So here are your 4 arm lines. The arm lines are 4 lines. We have 2 in the front, 2 in the back. We have 2 superficial lines, 1 in the back, 1 in the front, and 2 deep lines, 1 in the front, 1 in the back. All lines run from the axial skeleton, so your axial skeleton is like your spine and what's around it, through the shoulder, along the arms into the hands. They show multiple crossover linkages in between the deep, the superficial, the front and the back lines, which are necessary for the mobility and multiple directions that we are able to move our arms around. So let's look at what the arm lines do postural. And even though they're not part of the actual structure of us when we're standing up, they're kind of just hanging down on the sides, they do have an impact on our overall posture. So if you're driving all day long, or you're sitting on your desk all day long, you've got your arms in front of you at all times. And this can put a lot of strain onto your mid-back, and we often see poor posture of the shoulders, which can have then a big impact on your rib cage, your neck, and therefore on your breathing as well, because this is, you know, over restricting your lungs to breathe in openly. In terms of movement, your arm lines are pushing, they're pulling, and they're stabilize in certain movements. Furthermore, they're also seamlessly connecting to our lateral, our spiral, and the functional lines, and therefore play a role in all sorts of movements. Compensation patterns that can be associated with your arm lines, usually all kinds of shoulder problems, back and neck issues, breathing problems, as I said before, and the more obvious issues, arm and hand problems, like carpal tunnel, for example. Shoulders can often be seen as protracted, retracted, lifted, or rounded, and this goes usually hand in hand with a lack of support from your rib cage, which leads again then to connection to the cardial lines, so your front and back lines, as well as the spiral and the deep front line. As I said, carpal tunnel, elbow, shoulder impingements are often signs of long ongoing postural and supportive faults in those cardial lines. So if we're putting the arm out to the side like so, this is now exposing our superficial front arm line, starting through the palmar region here, going all along into your pec major. And yes, you guessed it, if we turn this around, we've got the back line going the exact same direction. If we now turn our arm with the thumb facing forward, that goes into our deep frontal arm line, going from the thumb again along here and into pec minor, which is underneath pec major. And the deep back line again, just on the outside, on the back side, coming from here, now a bit further down through the tricep, into the shoulder, into the trapezius. So what I'll do, I'll pop up a picture here and I'm just going to talk through it, just to make it a bit easier on you guys to follow along with what I'm talking about. So here we go. Let's have a look at the track of the arm lines, starting with the deep front arm line on the front aspect. The deep front arm line, the DFAL, begins on the anterior aspect of the number 1, 3rd, 4th and 5th ribs, with number 2, the pectoralis minor, which is embedded in the clavipectoral fascia. Through the distal station of pec minor, the number 3 coracoid process of the scapula, the lines track along number 4 biceps brachii and coracobrachialis into number 5 the radial tuberosity. From here it moves on along the number 6 radial periosteum towards the number 7 styloid process of the radius, into the number 8 radial collateral ligaments and thenar muscle, via the number 9 scaphoid and trapezium to the number 10 outside of the thumb. The superficial arm line, the SFAL, begins with the pectoralis major muscle, which has multiple medial attachments. Number 1 is the medial third of the clavicle, costal cartilage, lower ribs, thoracolumbar fascia, and iliac crest. This makes more sense coming into number 2, where pec major and latissimus dorsi meet, as well as teres major, as all these twist into bands attaching alongside each other to the underside of the anterior humerus. So check out this picture to explain that a bit better. From there, the SFAL tracks medial along the number 3 humeral line, the number 4 intermuscular septum of the upper arm, and the number 5 humeral epicondyle, moving into the number 6 flexor group through the number 7 carpal tunnel into the number 8 palmar surface of the fingers. The SFAL controls positioning of the arm in front and beside us, as well as participates with the deep front arm line in grip controlling the wrist and fingers. Cool, so we've done the front lines and I'm just going to show you a stretch. There's actually a video already that kind of showed parts of it, but this one goes a bit deeper. So if you're lying, usually best is to lie down and have the arm, the shoulder just outside of whatever you're lying on, if it's bed or a table or whatever. So you got gravity really grabbing hold of the arm and dragging it down. But however, you can do this sitting up as well. If you're really tight, you'll feel it anyway. So to go into the superficial front line, you're just out like this. Actually, I'm going to put that a bit more here so you see a bit more. So it's just on the side. You're stretching that away so your fingertips are leading away. You're reaching from the scapula, so you're not just keeping that locked and you're not just pulling here, but you're actually reaching through the whole back there, reaching that out, and you should feel a nice bit of force coming here through the line into pec major. If we now, as we said just before, turn the hand upside down, or you can actually, you can increase that stretch by simply pulling the fingers back. Oh, yes, haven't done that in a while. Oh, that's good. So, yeah, increasing that stretch through the palmar region, because that's where the superficial front line attaches to. If you want to go into the deep front arm line, now the force is coming through the thumb, because that's where the deep front line ends up. So again, you've got your arm out. Doesn't really matter if it's this way or this way, as long as it is your thumb that's kind of pulling out and away from you. So simply by having your thumb acting, it's probably easier having the hand now palm facing down and giving it a bit of a rotation through the wrist there as well, just helping that thumb to elongate and have that pull away, and that should go similar. Like, I can feel that more up here rather than down there, and definitely a bit deeper into the pectoralis muscles there, and into the trapezius for that matter. Anyway, so that's a really nice stretch you can do to get into the deep and superficial front arm line. Let's keep going with the pictures with the deep and superficial back arm lines. The deep back arm line, the DBAL, starts at the 1 spinous process of the upper thoracic and the 7th cervical vertebrae, tracking down and out via the number 2 rhomboids to the number 3 medial border of the shoulder blade. Remember from last month, the rhomboids are also part of the spiral line, though the spiral line goes then deep underneath the scapula, whereas the DBAL continues superficial to the scapula via the rotator cuff, in particular the infraspinatus and teres minor. The next station is then on the posterior side, so on the backside of the humerus, the greater tubercle. It's important to mention here that there's another branch of the DBAL, which begins on the one lateral side, so lateral on the side, on the lower surface of the occiput, tracking down through the levator scapula via the first 4 cervical vertebrae. This line then links through the superior top angle of the scapula to the supraspinatus, which runs along on the top of the scapula towards the greater tubercle of the humerus. The 4th muscle of the number 4, which is the rotator cuff complex, the subscapularis, covers the anterior surface, so the front of the scapula, which faces the ribs, and the fibers of the muscle connect to the anterior aspect of the number 5, head of the humerus. The rotator cuff muscles control the head of the humerus. This way, the whole of the rotator cuff complex is linked into the deep back arm line. Close to where the rotator cuff attaches to the humerus originates the longest head of the number 6 triceps brachii. The triceps tracks down to the number 7, the tip of the elbow. From here, the lines becomes purely fascia moving along the number 8 periosteum of the ulna. And once we reach the number 9, the ulnar styloid process, on the outside of the wrist, we keep following the ligamentous capsule of the wrist. The number 10, the ulnar collateral ligament. Number 11, the triquetral and hamaticarpal bones. And this leads us to the periosteum and ligaments that run up the pinky finger, our number 13. Number 12 you can see on the picture is our hypothenar muscle, which is also part of the line. The deep back arm line works with the deep front arm line. Yep, so both deep lines work together to adjust the angle of the elbow, to limit or allow side-to-side movement of the upper body when in a crawl position, and to provide stability along the outside of the hand to the back of the shoulder. The superficial back arm line, the SBAL, comes through the wide sweep of the trapezius axial attachments from the number 1 occipital ridge through the number 3 spinal process of T12. An interesting point here, number 4, the occipital fibers of the trapezius link with the anterior deltoid, your front deltoid. The cervical fibers of the traps link with the medial aspect of the deltoid, and the thoracic traps links roughly with the posterior deltoid. So part of the superficial back arm line kind of actually goes to the front of the shoulder, number 5, to then move to the posterior aspect of the arm, number 6. Here is where all fibers coming from below, medial and above and frontal, to converge onto the number 7, the deltoid tubercle. They're passing underneath the brachialis muscle to blend with the fibers of number 8, the lateral intermuscular septum, which divides the flexors and the extensors, the back and the front of the arm. And from here it moves along to number 9, the lateral humeral epicondyle, further to the number 9, the common extensor tendon, passing under the dorsal retinacular to the carpals and our fingers, number 11. The superficial back arm line controls the arm in movements like a backhanded tennis, but its main work is to limit and contain the work of the superficial front arm line. So there you have it. That's it for the arm lines. In my opinion, often overlooked and not integrated too much into treatment or training for that matter. One of the reasons is the following. Because I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of crossing over from the back lines into the front lines. We had it in the superficial front arm line, I believe. Yes, where you had teres major and latissimus, with actually muscles that are coming from the back, coming into the front and into the front line. So that's one of the crossovers we talked about. But there's heaps more, but it is very confusing, and it just goes too deep into what I want to try and achieve here. But I believe that's one of the points, that it is often overlooked because it is quite confusing and hard to differentiate which is what and coming from where, and trying to get a grip of what's going on through the shoulders and through the arms. A lot of times the lines are hard to reach. A lot of it is very dense myofascial tissue or even periosteum tissue, so the tissue on the bone, so that can be rather painful to touch. And in general, people don't feel issues through the arms, so the shoulders and the neck and the back is most of the time what gets worked. But there's always more to the whole picture, and I myself, I'm still trying to process and fully understand those 4 lines in particular. Here's one more picture I want to add in just to show you with how many different kinds of force our shoulder has to deal with. The arrows indicate where tissue is attached and into which direction it is pulling. That's pretty cool, I reckon. Alrighty, last point, my soup of the month, this time a bit more sophisticated and time-consuming than the last few I've done. It's a chicken and wild rice soup. And I love wild rice. There's nothing yummy as wild rice. So what you'll need for this one is about 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, 1.5 celery ribs, 1 carrot, half a medium onion, 1 clove of garlic, 3/4 tablespoon of thyme, salt and pepper to taste, about 1/4 cup of flour to thicken and to brown, half a cup of wild rice, 1 to 2 cups of chicken broth or water or vegetable stock, and 1 cup of water, sorry. And you also need some roasted chicken for it, or cooked chicken, whatever you prefer. You melt the butter, you add the celery, the carrots, onion, garlic, thyme, salt and pepper, and cook till the vegetables are just starting to soft. Then you sprinkle the flour over it and you keep stirring and cooking until it's all evenly coated and starts to brown. Then you add the wild rice, the stock and the water, bring everything to the boil and let it simmer till all the vegetables are tender. If you like your veggies a bit more crisp, pre-cook the rice, because wild rice tends to take quite a bit to cook. Then you add the chicken, you let it all simmer together for about another 10-15 minutes, and then all you got to do is plate it up and enjoy. And that's it for us. As always, I'd love to hear comments, questions, whatever it is. Always happy to hear your feedback. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to see you in about 2 weeks for the block in August. Block entry for August 2015. And by then I'll be back in town as well. So I'm looking forward to see you face to face again as well. Till then, take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.